We've come a very long way in terms of agricultural technology. We have so many chemicals now that can just do so many amazing things, and we're very happy for it. They do help to feed on a very massive macro agricultural level, provide food for places that normally wouldn't have food. But for the home gardener, is it the best way to go? And what can we gain by staying 100% organic in your garden? Hello everyone, thank you all so much for joining in. This is Dylan from the Trinidad and channel, and today we're talking about a bit of a tricky topic, and I want to therefore start off with a disclaimer, which is that this video is in no way me advertising and telling you that you should use chemicals in your garden, and it's in no way me telling you that if you use organic practices in your garden that you're automatically better than anyone or that you're more sophisticated in any kind of way like that. It's not a debate about that. It's a simple matter of how we can benefit by staying 100% organic in your garden, but at the same time, understanding that in our Trinidadian context, asking a mass commercial grower to go organic is something that they may not be able to do based on the kind of infrastructure that we have in Trinidad currently, the kind of systems we have in place, and the kind of support that we may or may not have for 100% organic farming on a massive macro scale. Let's get straight to it. Okay, so that aside, look at my tomatoes. They don't look very inspiring right now. Some of you do message in and say that you feel inspired by the garden. I don't think this is going to inspire a lot of people, but I think when I tell you how long these tomatoes have been here, you're going to be interested. So I planted these tomatoes in June of 2022. You heard that right. In June of 2022, I'm going to see if I get any content from June to put it up here so that you can just see a bit of proof of when I planted it. I do have a TikTok that I did in July with these tomatoes when they were still adolescent. And today we are the 19th of November. I couldn't find a newspaper to prove we are the 19th of November, but I did find one that is the 15th of November. So that means if these tomatoes were adolescent at the very minimum in July, and now they are still here with a tomato that I could pick right now in the, what date is it? It's the 19th of November. You're just going to have to trust me on the extra 4 days because this is the 15th of November. So you're just going to have to trust me from that part on. But if it's been there for so long, that means it's been in existence, growing, producing for at least July, August, September, October, and halfway through November, and there's still some tomatoes here that still have to get ripe. Now, that for me is incredible. It's amazing, and it's even more amazing, not in any way tout in my garden, but it's amazing when you consider, if you live in Trinidad, you know what happened within the months of October into the start of November. You know the kind of rain we've had in Trinidad, and you also know the kind of floods we had in Trinidad. It was torrential rain, sort of like the things that you see in Sri Lanka happening with the monsoon. It was really, really bad. And a lot of people wrote in and they said that the tomatoes that they planted were all destroyed by the rain. And it's true. The rain can be a very, very difficult thing to manage in your garden. Now, how were these tomatoes then able to survive that kind of onslaught and continue producing up until the 19th of November? And the answer is very, very simple. In this garden, we are 100% organic. And what that does for you is a few things. Now, we're going to start off with, again, saying that if you are growing on a macro scale, I understand if you have a massive field that you can't see about your tomatoes in the same way that I can come down and tend to these 4 tomatoes planted in buckets over here. That is fine, and I understand it, and I of course wish you all the best, and I really hope that you were able to find a way to work around the weather situation. And I know a lot of growers, commercial growers, who were just unable to continue with their planting. They literally terminated their field or just left it because it was just too difficult to do farm, too expensive as well, because the price of chemicals for these commercial growers has been going up like crazy. So when you see the prices in the market, you know, high prices for food is never really justified, but you can understand why they can't sell it at a certain price because they're paying so much just to produce it, and a lot of farmers also end up losing after everything. So it's a very tricky, difficult situation where the farmer the one individual farmer alone can bring down the price of the vegetables. And we're not talking about that. Let's not get too off topic. It's just that I understand that in those kind of situations, it's not easy to be 100% organic. But as a home gardener, and this channel is geared towards the home gardener, you definitely should be, in my opinion, looking towards being 100% organic, simply because we have gotten sort of accustomed to relying on agricultural technology to bring forth your harvest, right? You call it to bring a crop. That's the that's the sort of the jargon that's used to bring a field of whatever, right? That means to bring it to harvest, right? So we've gotten sort of dependent on that we've sort of forgotten that nature existed before these agricultural practices, before the use of these chemicals. And one of the ways that nature handles these situations, like with rain and with the kind of floods that we've had, is that nature corrects it and finds ways around it because of what we have in our soil. And one thing that you're going to find in an organic garden that helps it when it's time like floods and torrential rain, one thing that you're going to find that is very, very important is organic matter. What is organic matter? Organic matter is the broken down exoskeleton of anything that at one point was alive. So it's not just simply talking about clay or silt or sand, which is normally what makes up your soil. It's things like your compost, right? We've talked a lot, and we will continue talking about compost on this channel, because compost really is the key to everything in my garden, and is the key to why these tomatoes are still here and they're still producing. Of course, they don't look amazing, but to have survived through everything, there is a reason for it. And it's because what you get with organic matter is you get something that is well structured in the soil. Soil itself, think of it as just like a sponge. It's a sponge that holds on to water. It's a sponge that also holds on to nutrition, and it allows airspace for air to go through, right? Because as water trickles down, it brings new air into your soil, keeps your soil aerobic as opposed to anaerobic, and this allows in an organic garden for you to have a wonderful little ecosystem of microorganisms that help to grow our soil. Because in an organic garden, and as I've said before, in an organic garden, we don't grow our crops. We give our crops the necessary environment for the microorganisms to grow our crops for us. And in that case, they take care of our crops. We don't take care of our crops. So we don't feed in an organic garden. We don't feed, like I don't feed my crops nitrogen, because I don't know if these plants need nitrogen right now. Like I can't be psychic to know that these plants need potassium right now. Normally it's said that in the beginning you give them nitrogen, then as they're starting to put on flowers, you give them some phosphorus to produce the flowers, and then potassium all around. That is fine. But what about megalodinum? I don't know if I said that right. Megalodinum. I'll put up the word here. What about copper? What about zinc, which these plants do need to some certain extent? How could I know that the plant needs that? I don't know that, but the plant knows. And what will happen in your organic garden is that when you feed your plant things like compost with your worm tea, when you feed your plant your animal manure, and you have these microorganisms that then find a home around the roots of your plant, these microorganisms, they communicate with your plant, because what your plant does is your plant produces sugars that these microorganisms can now feed off, and they produce themselves, produce the fungi, the sort of like the strings of fungi that goes looking for the nutrients that you therefore need. So of course you need to be amending your soil, and you're putting in your compost, you're putting in your worm tea, your worm castings, all the things that we've talked about. You're doing all of that, your wood compost, your animal manure, all of that, but you're not feeding that directly to your plant. You're putting it into the container or into the soil itself. The plant has an ecosystem whereby the microorganisms go and they find these nutrients, they bring them to the plant, and in return the plant will produce the sugars that these microorganisms need to survive. So your beneficial bacteria, your beneficial fungi, your mycorrhizal fungi, all of that is a very, very important part to how these tomatoes continue thriving. Now, what is a fungus? Okay, so welcome to my compost pile. The actual green waste compost is a bit of a mess, but this is the animal manure. So basically animal compost. What you're going to see in it is mushrooms. I'm not taking the entire the top off, right, the tarpaulin, because I just have a feeling I'm going to see some critters there and my heart cannot handle anything right now. It's getting dark, so I'm really not in the mood to battle any snake or anything like that right now. But what you see growing out there, right? That's not leaves. That is mushrooms. I look all over here. That's mushrooms. Whoa. Yeah. Cool, huh? Now, why is that important or relevant? It's important because what a mushroom is a mushroom is sort of, you can think of it as the fruit of fungi. In the soil itself, in this compost, we have millions and probably billions of fungi that are existing under the soil itself. I'm just checking to make sure I'm not in any imminent danger. Um, there are millions and probably billions of fungi in this compost here. So what the fungi will do is every season, right, every mating season, sort of the season for reproducing, they will send up a shoot, which is your mushroom, right, this little umbrella thing, and underneath the cap of the mushroom, you're going to have spores. These spores are the seeds that are eventually going to produce fungi, and the fungi manifests in a form that's called mycelium. If you've ever left grass around and like if you have mowed the lawn, you're going to see like these white things, sort of like white strands forming. That's mycelium, and the mushroom is going to die soon. It's just going to sort of melt away, and if you've seen mushrooms, you know what that is. It that melts away, but the mycelium stays in any organism where it can feed on, like normally it's called a substrate, so something like wood, certain other kinds of materials that it likes to hold on to, and it will live inside there for sometimes hundreds of years. So the fungi itself is a living organism that is in compost, like animal manure. I have seen it as well in the compost pile over here, but the manure has a lot more. I think it's just simply because of what the cows eat, because this is cow manure over here. And the mushrooms are an indicator that we have a good ecosystem of fungi. And that fungi, if you keep it nice and aerobic, you keep it well fed by continuously aerating it and adding more manure over time, it's going to be good fungi that you can add to your plants. So when you add the manure to your plants, you are adding something that has the nutrients, but more importantly, you're adding the helpers in nature that are going to help your plants to get that nutrients, protect your plants, help your plants when it has too much of water around, and help your plants when it's even in drought conditions, because the fungi itself will help your plants in the compost with the organic matter to hold on to moisture for a longer period of time. So if you live somewhere like Arizona or some kind of desert, having compost in your soil is going to help you with water retention as well. Something that I forgot to mention, which I hope I'll be able to edit and find a way to put it into the video, is that the spores which are on the underside of the cap of the mushroom, those spores become airborne. They're traveling by wind, sometimes hundreds of feet, sometimes miles away from where they were. And when they land on a substrate, such as wood or such as any other material where they can, any kind of organic matter that they can sort of colonize, they can create an entire new colony. And that's how fungi spreads. So a lot of the things that we have in the garden that you think it came from your soil, sometimes it came from somewhere that's far, far away. I've even seen documentaries where in the rainforest, certain types of fungi can travel, miles and miles, and it doesn't just get like wind airborne just like that. It actually will spray the spores out, and those spores go all over. It's really cool. Fungi is amazing. It's some of the oldest creatures on earth. So when you use a lot of fungicides in your garden, these copper-based fungicides, which is the go-to thing for any kind of problem with fungus in your garden, you're killing the fungus that that you want to attack, but you're also killing all of these amazing creatures that really want to help your plants. A lot of them do bad, but a big majority do more good than bad. In addition to all of this, when your soil is full of organic matter, it allows for a soil structure that will make sure that air and water can percolate and go run all the way through your soil, and therefore leave at the bottom because you put drainage holes as per my tomato growing guide, which I'll put up on the side here, a little plug for the tomato growing guide. So the entire system is designed so that it will mimic nature. What will very often happen during rain and when you have floods is that if you are growing in an area where you're very, very reliant on chemicals, that means that your soil itself is going to lose life. Life is the root to all of this. When we say an organic garden, what we're really saying is a garden with life in it. And what does that mean? I'm not talking about the life of the plants. the plants and the life that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the microorganisms that are in the soil. Because for literally any problem you have in your garden, you go to an agro shop to tell them about the problem, they'll give you poison. All right, they'll give you poison. It will not necessarily kill you, maybe not in the short term, maybe in long term, right? I'll leave that up for you all to do your own research. But they're going to kill the organisms that are in the soil because some of these chemicals, they like pesticides, fungicides, right? Insecticides, they advertise that they hunt and they kill the bad organisms. They leave the good ones. I'm sorry, it's impossible. It is truly impossible. Think about if you have an area, Trinidad, where you have some bad people living in certain communities and you want to now get rid of the situation there. So you bomb the entire area. What is going to end up happening? Yes, you're going to get the bad guys, but you're also going to get probably majority good guys. Same thing in the soil. So the same thing happens in the soil. The innocent people are going to get hurt with the people that you're trying to target, and the same thing in the soil. That when you try to get rid of one problem, you create 100 others because you've gotten rid of very beneficial life that is in the soil. Now, what happens when you get rid of that life? When you get rid of all of that and you're entirely dependent now on these chemicals to give you your nutrition, to protect your plants, and to just bring your entire harvest. What will happen? You're going to have a soil that is close to being dead. That means that it works as a sponge. It will hold on to water to a certain extent. It will hold on to the nutrients that you have to manually put inside because there is no life to go and look for the nutrients for you. And when you have flood, there is no organic matter or a very little amount of organic matter because organic matter wasn't taking care of your field. Agricultural technology was taking care of your field. So when you have flood coming in and the water needs to percolate and go down, the organic matter that gives an organic garden its structure, allows for air pockets, allows for water to go down and drain out, it is not there. So therefore water stays, it gets settled, it remains stagnant. And if water is stagnant, the air itself will go from it and you will not have air going all the way through. The air itself, the water, stagnant water, basically it doesn't have any air in it because the air will eventually just sort of evaporate out of that water, and the water itself is going to become sort of a problem because that water becomes full of anaerobic bacteria. It promotes an anaerobic environment, and that is not a good situation for your roots because then you have organisms that are not going to help your roots, but they're going to start feeding on your roots. And even certain bacteria that would have liked to be good bacteria, they're going to start not feeding around your roots and looking for and helping the fungi to look now for nutrients. It's going to start consuming the roots of your plants. So all of this is the reason why that if you're in a home garden like what we have here and what we try to promote in the garden, in your backyard, in your front yard, a container garden, on your patio, you try to use organic agricultural practices. That is going to help your garden to remain healthy even when we have things like rain or flood. Of course, there are certain things that go as well with helping your plants, but to be honest, the main thing that allows these tomatoes to stay for so long, so alive, so producing, so bountiful, is simply relying not on my own technology, but relying on nature and nature's technology that goes back billions of years. And it is something that has been working for me. It's something I think will work for you. And it's something that I think you really need to start telling other people about, talk about it, have a discussion, because a lot of people who use chemicals, they are aware of all of these facts. And these are some very, very educated people. The commercial growers and people that you see in the markets, in the farms, they have so much of wisdom, they have so much of knowledge. It's just that for them, it's not always feasible on a large scale to go get manure for an entire field. It's not necessarily feasible to go through and do organic practices when you have certain pests in your garden, because at some point you just need something strong, especially when money is involved. A lot of these farmers, they're taking loans just to be able to plant a plot of land for Christmas or whatever the case is. So you can't blame people for wanting to go to something that the scientists tell you that this is the way to go, right? And it has been working for people in many different ways for the past few years. But of course, there comes with that territory some dangers, some disadvantages, And one of the disadvantages is that when you do have floods, when you do have excessive rain, excessive moisture, and you have a situation where you have a lot of fungi just circulating, because a lot of these fungi, a lot of them, we think that they all come from the soil and they come from just, it's soil borne, right? That is possible. But what happens is fungi travels in the air, right? There's fungi travels in the air. Blight, for instance, is a fungi, and that travels in the air. With all of that being said, I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. I really hope that it has provided some well-needed food for thought, and I really hope that it's going to encourage you to promote and to use more organic agricultural practices in your home garden, or even to a certain extent, if you have a small commercial business going on in agriculture, that you may be able to adapt some of these practices into your own commercial practices. And if in any way that can work and it can help you, I think we're all going to be better off for it, as a country, as a society, as a world. So remember, if you know somebody who would benefit from this kind of information, or somebody who needs to hear this discussion, or somebody who might be interested in it, then feel free to share this video, and to also share the channel where we have a lot of growing guides and we have a lot of harvest videos. And for anybody who might be like-minded, feel free to share the video along. Remember that if you would like to see more content coming out of Trinidad Gardeners Garden, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook. And feel free to tag us on any of those platforms, because it's such a blessing to see all of you all in your gardens, doing your thing, getting your successes, even in your failures. We're happy to share in all of it, provide advice, and to just simply connect on the social networks in an environment, in a community that is geared towards organic home gardening, or just simply gardening in general. Remember, as always, this has been Dylan from the Trinidad Gardener channel, reminding you to get up and get growing. Take care.